Bite windows in December are short, and if you're throwing the wrong bait, you'll fish right through them and never know it. I'll show you the 5 best baits for December bass that work for me, plus one bonus bait at the end that I trust when nothing else gets bit. So December is an interesting month to me. I moved from the Midwest down to the South decades ago so I could fish right through the winter. If you're still up north, right up until ice up, that deep weed edge, those outside areas where the bass are at, man, they group up. It can be good, but then it's frozen over. For the rest of the country, December it's a transition month. It's the end of the fall, but the water's still warm enough where the fish at the beginning of the month are pretty active and you get them chasing where it's going to bottom out, in January and February. And then in Texas and the South, our pre-spawn already kicks off at the beginning of January. I've seen fish on beds in the middle and end of January on a really, really warm winter. So it's really an important time for me to get out there. I feel like you can still find a lot of key spring spots while the water, before it gets really, really cold down the 30s. If it's in the 50s or even the 40s, you can find these fish. Then in January, it's going to be hard to get them to bite. So it's a key window right now. Here are 5 baits for me that work really well. I have a few starting out shallow that work. I have some that work out deeper, some that work with LiveScope, and some that work without. So let's dive into it. So I'll start off with one you can probably guess. It's going to be on most people's December list. The first one, no surprise, is a crankbait. And to me, it's the optimum time of year to throw a crankbait. And if I have to pick one, it's that Fritside 5. It's a small bill crankbait. It's a pretty small profile. It looks like threadfin shad that they're eating so much. And you can go in the craw colors and stuff too. But this thing runs deep enough. It's that kind of key fall area. So it's like 3 down to 7 feet. And I'm going to fish it around cover, typically rocky banks and stuff, hard spots. And then I'll fish around grass too. For whatever reason, the crankbait, it's to me, this is the absolute best time of the year to throw it. In those cold water, once you get into late October in the mid-tier, and especially November, December, into the pre-spawn. But right now, it's the best bait that I think, especially on moving days. I want windy days, like the more wind, the better. If it's, overcast and kind of spitting or sleeting, raining and stuff, those days are good. But a lot of wind is what I'm really wanting. And I can catch them in muddy water, in clear water, and it's a lot of just covering water. It's going to vary by the day. Sometimes they want steeper. If it's a cold front, they're going to be on steeper type stuff, channel swing banks or just those bluffier type banks. Sometimes it's on points. Sometimes if it's warming trends, they're going to be more in the backs of the creeks. You'll see the shad popping, especially in like a sunny afternoon. So you have to pattern where they're at. But I'm going to sample that a lot of different type areas till I find them. I'm going to turn up the trolling motor, cover a lot of ground. I'm reeling these earlier in the fall and early December. Like right here in Texas, I fished over Thanksgiving weekend. Some of the water that I saw was 70 degrees, like up to 72. That's kind of abnormal. A lot of places you're going to be seeing 40s, 30s and stuff. The colder it gets, the more I'll slow it down a lot of times, unless it's a warming afternoon. Sometimes I go faster. But I like a fairly quick retrieve. And the other thing to keep in mind is if your trolling motor's turned up fast, or you're just bank fishing and you're walking fast, you're moving towards it. So even though you're reeling fast, you're not really moving the bait forward that fast. So what I like to do is turn up the trolling motor pretty high, go at a pretty brisk pace, whip it down the bank, reel it fairly quick, and I'm just covering water until I run into areas. Once I find banks and stuff that have them, a lot of times you can come back through there later in the day or just turn around and come back through again. If the wind's blowing on it, those are going to be key areas. In terms of colors and stuff, this one, even I've had good luck even in muddier type water. This is Ghost Morning Dawn. It's translucent. You can see through it. The red ones, for whatever reason, when the spring or when the winter comes around, you see some crawfish that are red and stuff, but the red and the oranges get so good. Those are kind of legendary, and I'll try those a lot. If it's more muddy water, this is like this candy apple red or something. It's like red orange. It's opaque. You can't see through it. It's a solid color. On the muddier stuff, sometimes that's better. If it's brighter, more clear water, this translucent kind of ghost red, I like that one a little better. But, you know, one of those reds, I'm always going to sample that in the winter time. If it's, you know, rainy, or sometimes if it's real muddy, bright white can be real good. The white just stands out. And if the fish are really active and it's just a rainy, dark day, that white, it seems like they can see that the best. So I just want them to see it. That one works out. If the water's fairly clear, they're kind of pressured and stuff, man, the clear ones work out well. So much, in fact, you know, I roomed with John Cox when he won on this on Sam Rayburn, and he was throwing kind of the chartreuse black back, and he was running low on baits. And I said, man, have you tried this one? You know, this is my favorite. I don't believe he'd even thrown it yet. I had a few of those, gave them to him, and then like on day 2 when he caught him so good, he had switched over to Gover's Morning Dawn, and he's a big advocate now. So still waiting for half that check, John, for helping you out with that one. But the clear, the Ghost Morning Dawn, the clear ones, those work well. You notice some of these have rattles in them. I like the more active they are. If it's an aggressive day, if I feel like they're biting, that's when more wind, you know, more rain, all that stuff. That little rattle, I like that. If it's a day where there's a lot of pressure and I don't think like they're biting as well, the silent one, I like that a little better. Sometimes that works out better. I'll pretty much stick with that Fritz. Even if I'm starting to get out to like 7 to 10 feet of water, those fish will kind of come up for it. It doesn't have to be grinding into the bottom. If it bumps it a little bit in the shallows and comes out, that works. If it's like really clear, say I'm on Table Rock, something like that, a lot of those Tennessee, like the mountain lakes out there in Kentucky, any of that middle tier, those highland lakes, I will go with the rock crawlers and wiggleworts, and all those are legendary. This is a dime, both the 6 and the 10, which run about, like 6-10 feet. When I need to get a little bit deeper in that clear, sometimes these work better, and I just cast these out. And when it gets cold, I like to slow reel these, and they just they'll kick out a little more. Where the Fritz side's a little more rhythmic, it's tight. These are a wider wobble, so I'll try those a little bit too in that clear water when it gets cold. But cranking, basically put your head down, cover a bunch of water. If you don't have anything going, I'll just start cranking like crazy till I find them on those. Oh, one last thing on the crankbait. I mentioned these. I mentioned grass at the beginning. That's where I think they're underutilized. And we'll talk about grass baits in a second, because grass in the wintertime is so key, whether you're on a natural lake, a southern reservoir, a Florida lake, whatever. But not many people crank grass. And the Fritz side, it'll come through the grass well enough. You're going to have to be kind of aware of it and snap it free and stuff. But man, when everybody else is throwing a bladed jig and a spinner bait and those type baits, a lipless through them, you bring a crankbait through the grass. I've had days in like Toledo Bend and Rayburn and all these Texas grass lakes down in Florida, even natural lakes up north. A crankbait through the grass can be really good. So don't forget these. When the bite gets kind of tough, they stop eating that bladed jig. Pull out the crankbait. For the second one, I already hinted at that a little bit. I gave it away, but bladed jigs, the chatterbaits and slobber knockers, all that. Perfect time of the year to throw them. And to me, it's really important. So what happens is, like I said, the water temperature is dropping. On lakes in the south here where they're grassy, once the water gets, if it drops into the 40s and 30s, those fish aren't very active. But as it's earlier in the season like this, and if the water's in the 50s still, or even warms up in the afternoons and stuff, the fish are more active. So I'm looking for spots that I can get a few bites in now in December, but I know once the spring comes that it's really going to pick up. The pre-spawn is going to start, so January, February, March. Those key spots in the grass, those ones I can find them right now, and the spots that I find in December are still going to be good spots up until the time they spawn. There's going to be grass points, ditches through the grass, just irregular sections of the weed line, deeper sections of the grass, holes in the flats, there's a few rocky areas or hard spots in the grass. All those are important. So I'm trying to catch some fish in December, but all these Texas lakes that I like to fish in January through March and pre-spawn, I'm throwing a bladed jig a ton right now. I'm covering a lot of water, and I'm marking those waypoints because every year the grass grows a little different. Grass may not grow in one cove, and then it grows in a different one, and then it may swap the next year. It grows a little deeper. The water level got low, or it stayed high. It was muddier or clear, whatever. The grass grows differently every year, so you have to re-scout your lakes every year if it's a grass lake. And so I'm going to throw a bladed jig and cover a lot of water until I find them. in the grass. Like I said, that's scout mode. The other thing is on lakes that don't have grass, they're eating a lot of minnows this time of year. You know, what's the one thing guys are catching them on out deep is the jighead minnow. Well, I'm putting a minnow on the back of my bladed jig a lot, and I'm fishing it just the shallow version of that. So I'm covering the water up shallow. It's the same sort of offering. You'll get ones that are shad eating. And the other thing is you get around docks, and especially like the floating ones, the ones with floats that float on the top, those black plastic floats and stuff. Those things, you know, obviously are sitting baking in the sun, and you'll see fish a lot of times sunning around them. Sometimes they're sitting in the sunny part, you know, just kind of sunning under the dock. And then sometimes they'll be hanging out in the shade, they'll dart out. But that's another good pattern too on the more sunny days. So when it's more windy and overcast, like I'm talking about cranking, that's when over the grass and just up shallow I can catch them. If it's more sunny, a little bit less wind, instead of having to go out deep, you can go fish the shade or those floats of those docks and still get them to bite a lot of times. That's where the bladed jig will work. For trailers, you kind of see the ones, like I said, the jighead minnow is so good, so I've started putting a lot of those same, like this is a drip minnow. I put this on those minnow style baits on the back. You can see just me holding it, the tail action's so good with the slobber knocker and stuff. It just makes it kick like crazy. Then the traditional, the minnow tails, either the flat tail or like this booted power stinger. I'll throw these on the back. It varies from one day to the next. Orange, that's kind of a secret Texas color, or not, used to be secret. A lot of people throw that in the muddier water, is really good. Natural shad colors, really good too. And then there's one change up that I do, one other thing. So they'll get around like pole docks and lay downs in the winter, especially in the afternoons when it warms up a little bit. They'll get around that hard cover. So instead of a minnow, what I like to do is this is a creature hog. It's kind of a beaver style bait. It's bulkier. I'll put this on the back of my slobber knocker. I was trying to Texas rig it. I don't know what I was doing, but you just slide it up. So look at the profile of this. Instead of having a minnow tail, this is flat. It's bulkier. A couple things. One, around docks and laydowns, I can skip this in really good because of that flat side. But the other thing, if I cover up the blade, what's that look like to you? That looks like a jig, and a jig's really good in the wintertime. And it'll tip me off if I can catch them on a jig. What I'll do is I'll skip this in next to a dock post or a lay down, and I'll let it go all the way to the bottom. So it falls just like a jig. And I have that jig trailer. So I'll get some bites, anywhere from 10 to 60% of my bites will be on that initial fall. And then I can retrieve it back out like I would a bladed jig. So I basically get 2 casts in one. I'm flipping a jig and I'm swimming a bladed jig all at the same time. Now, if all of a sudden they all start eating it on the fall, then I'm probably going to just actually switch to a jig. And if none of them are eating it on the fall, they're all eating it swimming, then it's time to go to the minnow style. But a lot of days you're trying to figure it out, and this gives you, like I said, if you're throwing to laydowns and docks and stuff, it's like throwing 2 baits every cast. So it just doubles your chances of getting bit. That's kind of my little secret. I use this all the time through the spring. Now the third one, this is probably not in a lot of your list, or maybe some of the older deep water guys throw these, but a jig and spoon, a traditional one, is a very traditional wintertime bait. But the fork flutter spoon, and this thing, it took off on Lake Fork and then kind of around the country on the TVA and stuff. This was a huge phenomenon here. And now some guys use this with LiveScope. It's kind of a forgotten lure, though. If you guys scope with it, but when this thing came out, this was not a scope bait. We would find fish offshore on points, and you would cast it out there and just retrieve it. And a normal jig and spoon, you're going to vertically fish those flat-sided ones, and you rip it, or maybe you slow lift drop it, or snap it, hold it in place, whatever you do. These, instead of, those kind of drop like this, or maybe turn on their side, but these literally flutter. They turn on their side and they fall really slowly, and they just waddle all the way back down. And you can rip it up and then just make it flutter, or you can vary it. And Lake Fork, like I said, Kelly Jordan took it. There was a local shop there that started selling them, and the fork flutter spoons. And I know other places have had them, and pike fishermen stuff. So we fished these 50 years. But anyway, it was kind of it nationally got recognition on Lake Fork. Kelly Jordan took it on ultimate match fishing up on Kentucky Lake and just like hammered him, kind of let the secret out of the bag. All the guides, all of us on Fork had been fishing him for a long time. And then I was buddies with Mark Pack, went fishing with him a number of times. And Mark was I mean, he was kind of a savant with this thing. He would fish it over grass. He would like pitch it like a jig and like rip it out of grass. He would throw it into standing timber. He would kind of, like guys are live scoping now, he'd just throw it out there and kind of in space, count it down and snap it and stuff. So there's a lot of different retrieves that you can do with it, and it varies by the day. So a couple of things on it. You see I have a couple different sizes here, like the small and the big, and they make great big ones, those monster, like that Ben Parker, that Magnum one. I don't use that as much. These are more like the, I guess you'd call this maybe 3 up to about 5, 6 inches. So these kind of the standard fork spoons. You see I like to put a swivel at the top because you get a lot of line twist. Just a, not a snap swivel, but a good quality ball bearing swivel up there. That'll help a lot with line twist. Silver and gold kind of seem to be the big colors that I use a lot. Usually silver if you have to default. And then some of the ones like the chartreuse, that mylar and stuff on the tails, add some flash. That seems to work, but I definitely experiment with these. But the big thing is, the way we used to fish these, you don't necessarily need LiveScope to fish them. We would get on humps or points, high spots, anything like that where fish just get in the wintertime. And you're talking anywhere. These can be like 8 to 12 feet on top of them and maybe more stained water. Or if this is like dead of the winter and it's cold, you're talking 25 to 40 feet deep here. So this is deep structure. But like I said, you don't necessarily have to graph them. These things have a lot of calling power. So what we would do is cast these things out and just let it go to the bottom like you would a worm, except for you're putting slack in it, and that's where it's doing all this fluttering. Now, when they first came out, guys were ripping them and just whoop, whoop. I mean, just like hook sets, like 1 or 2, and just burst it anywhere from 6 to 15 feet up off the bottom, and then feed it total slack, and it would flutter coming back down. Now, when it's warmer, like in summertime, that's really good. But what Pack and a few of the guys showed me is instead of doing it that aggressively, in the wintertime, you have 2 different options. One, you worm fish it, where you literally just slow pick up your rod, and instead of this thing like bursting up and then falling on its side, you pick this thing up where it barely even waddles. It kind of waddles a little bit like this, and then it shimmies backwards like tail first, and it just kind of shimmies. Doesn't turn on its side. It has this little tail shimmy that falls back to them. And I'm talking, you can pick it up just a little bit where it's coming a foot off the bottom and then slow follow it back down, not putting slack in it, just kind of follow it back down. Or kind of pull it up about 3 feet and follow it back a little more aggressively. And then the other thing that guys like to do is just reel it and never let slack get in there. So you hold your rod tip pointing up at, say, like 10 o'clock position, and just give it 1, 2, 3 reels, and not necessarily bursting it, just kind of like normal, winding in a bait, and then never move your rod. And then it just, so on tight line, this thing kind of shimmies up a little bit, and then it's on a tight line just following back, and it's not really moving much, but it may all of a sudden it'll kind of just kick out a little bit. So it's kind of irregular. So the colder the water is, the less aggressive with your rips and the less aggressive with the fall. So that's where you control your slack. So it's really, I think this is kind of a lost art. Most guys aren't doing this anymore. So it works really well. And the neat thing is, what you see right now, what are the guys in LiveScope doing? What are you looking for? Those fish are roamers. They're chasing shad. They're here 1 minute, the next minute they're 100 yards away. They're chasing. All this stuff's running around. So you can scope with it, but if you're not scoping, it's just a great bait. It has so much calling power, and when those fish are moving around, it looks like a dying shad. One that's like swimming, it's like, oh, I'm just struggling, which happens a lot. You'll see a lot of these struggling in the cold water like that. So that slow dying fall, this is a great bait. You can just whip it out. They cast a mile and just cover a lot of water, and you just randomly put it in front of one, and it looks like a dying shad, and you can catch them. Man, this thing used to be all we would throw in like November and December in Texas on Lake Fork, and it still works, and not many guys are throwing it anymore. And one last word on these, I do have a full video exactly how I fish them and everything, goes into more detail. If you want more detail on that, I'll link that down in the description. It's a deep dive on fishing the spoons. Now the next one, there's no way these days you can do a wintertime list without the jighead minnow being on it. And the thing is, everybody thinks of these things as scoping baits, and they are, and they're awesome at that. But they're also really good bank fishing or just blind casting baits as well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how to scope these, because I actually have a full video, I'll put that in the description as well, how to read it on LiveScope, how to actually fish these and everything. And then also I did my podcast with Drew Gill just recently. He goes into great detail, one of the best scopers in the world. So if you want more information on that, look in the description down below. You can get a deep dive. But what I'm going to share a little bit today is if you're bank fishing or you're shallow fishing, why these are so good. So quick, just, the jighead minnows, I think the standard, some guys like the 5-inch, the bigger ones, sometimes those are good, 5, 6, 7-inch. Sometimes a little 2 and 3-inch are good. I thought, the 4 is kind of all around. That's kind of my starting spot, and I'll go up and down from there, like 3 or 4-inch. You have like the straight tail is kind of the standard, with just some sort of a little action tail, looks like a little minnow. This time of year on any of the southern lakes, like threadfin shad are what largemouth are eating so much. They're just like 2 to 3-inch size bait fish. And then like the little boot tails and stuff, those are good too. So I'll kind of swap back and forth. This is a drip minnow and a drip swimmer, but kind of any of the minnow type baits are really good. And you just rig them on a jig head. There's varying weights, varying hook lengths. You just thread it up, obviously, up the minnow, up the hook. Here, it's just a jig head minnow. Now, why is this so good? So in the wintertime, you'll see on scope that bass are chasing shad. Some are down deep. Some of them are in schools. Some are loners and just singles. You see a lot of bait, and it's amazing. At the coldest time of the year, you'll see bait. Some of it gets down 30, 40, 50 feet, the deepest parts of the creeks and the lake. But you'll also see a lot of shad up near the surface. It's kind of wild. And the easiest bass to catch are the ones, it seems like the closer to the surface, the easier they are to catch. So there's a lot of them that'll be like 3 to 5 feet below the surface, and the shad's right there on the surface as well. So if you're fishing ponds or if you're blind casting, anything like that, those super shallow ones, if you see one of those on LiveScope, that's like the easiest one to catch. And the one trick on those, you don't want to let your bait get down too deep. A heavier jig head, you always want to keep your jig head minnow up above them. So the key to that is using like an 1/8 or even a 1/16 ounce jig head. A little jig head like this, small little hook, and throw that bait out there. You don't necessarily land it on the fish, you put it past them, and then you pop the rod tip, and like this little boot tail, it's got the little swimming action, almost like a boot tail swimmer. And then, this one has just that little quivering minnow action when you're shaking on the surface. But like I said, in the wintertime, the active fish are up near the top. So if you're in a pond that has bait fish and shad in it, I think you'll be surprised in the dead of winter. You would think that, man, I just need to dredge the bottom, fish a jig, go as deep as I can, or let that jig and spoon get down to the bottom, something like that. Slow roll a crankbait, deep as I can get it. I think for ponds and shallow and creeks and stuff, you'll be surprised how many fish are actually near the surface. Now, it's going to vary one day to the next whether they're doing it, but if you get a couple bites doing this, you can probably assume there's quite a few out there that are doing it. It's worth a few casts to check, even if you don't have LiveScope. So go with the light jig head, 1/8 ounce or 1/16, cast it out there. Don't let it, as soon as it hits the water, start shaking it. You don't have to get like real aggressive. You want to kind of pop the slack so this thing's just quivering near the surface and swimming. But try to keep it within 2 feet of the surface. Those fish, if they get close to it, they will annihilate it. So these little 3 and 4-inch bait fish right on the surface, kind of a neat way to blind cast him. If you haven't tried this in a pond, I don't think anybody's throwing it. All right, getting down to the end. So let's talk about the two. One to catch a big fish, and then another one, like I said, my bonus when it gets tough, the grinder, which you need, like the only thing they'll bite when it's really tough. But I like to go for big ones. And scoping this time of year, I'll do it when it gets really cold. Let's say the water temp gets in the 30s. It's 2 days after the front. It's post-frontal. The air temperature's in the 30s. The winds stop. It's just bright bluebird. That is so tough to go catch a fish on a bladed jig or a crankbait. It's just tough. So I'm going to pick up that minnow on those days. And it's like you can grind all day in the shallows to maybe catch a couple, or you can go out there on scope and catch the fire out of them. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going scoping on those days. But here's the other thing. Fishing that minnow, yeah, guys catch big ones on it. You can catch them. But man, I can consistently catch big ones on scope. I get a little bored just throwing out those dots after a while. You catch a lot of numbers on the good days. A lot of days they turn away, and it's just, I don't know, after a while the challenge, it's fun for a couple days. After that, the challenge kind of goes away. I do like fishing this swim bait though in the wintertime. And I am going to scope for these, and you could blind cast, but this is kind of a deal that you kind of got to scope for them. And this one calls the big ones. And I've tried, in the last couple of years, I tried a lot of swim baits on them, and the big glides, and, you know, throwing that wooden, the Hinkle shad and stuff. I've caught some nice fish doing that, and all sorts of, you know, chopping them and stuff. This is interesting, though. This is what I've settled on. And this is a Savage Gear soft shine glide. They make a hard version of it too. That's fine in the summer, but not in the winter. This is actually, it's a soft plastic. I mean, it looks like a paint job on here. This is a little bit darker one. They have all sorts of natural shad colors, but looks really interesting, or really natural. Has this little feathered treble that stays up there, and it tucks, the treble hook stays tucked up against the bait. So the big thing with this, two things. You don't work it like a regular glide bait. You're not out there chopping it, or you're not doing those big wide things and stuff. That's just too fast. The water gets cold. They're not that interested. You have to fish it really slowly. And I think of this, it's not even that big. This is more like, 6-7 inches, something like that. So it's not a huge swim bait. It's not super heavy. I just throw it on like a flipping stick, throw it out there on 20-pound fluoro. But I think of it more as a jerk bait. And these fish, you see them, a lot of them, they'll eat yellow bass and small white bass, and they're eating crappie, and if they get a chance for gizzard shad and stuff, they'll eat those in the wintertime, and it's a big, easy meal. And you'll see a lot of times you throw out there to a group, and if there's 5 or 6 fish and you throw that jighead minnow through them, well, they compete after it. They all come after it, and you see a big blob coming after it, and it's the 6 to 9 pound or whatever wants to get this thing, and the stinking little blob there, the 2 pounder, comes up and like grabs it. Well, when you throw the swim bait, you take a lot of those ones out of the equation, so you tend to catch the bigger ones. You notice this thing has like kind of a cross-shaped tail back there, so it planes out well. And this one with the soft body, that's the other thing. So they will hit this thing, they'll kind of bump at it, and if it's a resin or a wood swim bait, they hit it and they go away. This thing it's soft plastic, so they hit this thing and they'll still stay with it. Now here's the trick to it, and I'll put that in the description as well. I put a couple of videos up. You can see on screen me fishing it, how slowly I fish them. This is hunting big fish with LiveScope. So if that's up your alley, that's literally what you're doing. I like to have a little bit of wind in my face when I fish these things, so I'm drifting backwards. And here's why. When you throw to them, you can work the bait and you get them towards the boat. They get too close to the boat. I don't think they even get shy of the boat with these ones. They're more focused on the bait. The problem is you just run out of space to work it. Fish goes away. If I'm drifting backwards, if I'm going away, I'm never reeling. All I do is, what I'll do is I'll see them on LiveScope, throw it down to them, let it go down to them, and then I'll twitch it, snap, almost like a jerk bait, like I said, not like a swim bait, and it just kind of darts a little bit. And I'll twitch it a couple times. But when I'm drifting backwards, I'm not reeling. If I have a 60-foot cast out there, if it's 60 feet away from the boat, it stays 60 feet the entire time. And I'll watch those fish, a couple big ones, they'll come towards it and they'll follow it. And I'll go twitch. And with this flat tail, it sits horizontal. It doesn't nose dive or tail dive. It just kind of falls so slowly like this. And when you twitch it, it comes up just a little bit. It doesn't go down. It's natural. It kind of comes up just a little bit. So you can keep it above them, give it a little twitch, and they'll follow it. And they keep on coming forward. Remember now, I'm drifting backwards. So my bait's out here, my boat's here, and I'm never reeling in. So I just keep this distance the whole time as I'm drifting back. So I'm drifting backwards, and I just twitch. I don't reel. Twitch, I watch them on LiveScope. And some of these casts, it'll take 2 and 3 minutes. And you just twitch it, never reel it, and that fish, the bait comes forward, and that fish just follows. And it goes forward, and he just follows. They'll follow it and follow it. Boom! You'll feel them hit it. Like I said, it's soft on the side, and they'll still stay with it. And some of them eventually turn away, or it moves the wrong way. Most of them won't bite. But some of them bite, and they're usually great big ones. And you can just keep twitching it. You can play this game as long as you want. They'll follow and follow. It's really a good way to go hunt big fish. You get a lot of big follows on it. Like I said, the ones that commit, is big ones. So that's a fun bite in the wintertime. And then colors on these, natural is best. The white I'll use every once in a while. Like I said, if it's real dark, kind of rainy day. But the more natural, this kind of a bluegill one. A lot of them are eating like crappie and stuff. I'll see them when you're around a group of crappie that come out there. It's like darker. And then the one I like the best is just a natural shad color. So the ones that just like gizzard shad. So it's silver and then black on the back. And then the bonus tip, I tell you what, this time of year, the one thing, I don't throw this rig much during the year anymore, but during the winter, especially in December, a drop shot saves the day for me. Both shallow, if I'm around docks and laydowns and stuff, I can pitch a drop shot in there and get those fish to bite when nothing else will. Spots that, man, like the 3 days prior to that, I fished all these type of laydowns. I was getting bit. It's cold front now. I can't get them to bite. Or out deep. The spots where I said that I'll throw that flutter spoon out there and get fish, or I'm seeing them on LiveScope and I'm throwing the jighead minnow and the swimbait and stuff where they're biting. When they stop, when it really stinks, cold front, a drop shot works really well. Now, a couple things I like to change up. One, I don't shake it very much. Like in the wintertime, the colder it is, if you just let that thing sit there, throw it out there and just keep it still, I don't know what it is, but that thing, I mean, there's no motion. It's sitting there, but your rod tip's bouncing up and down a little bit. You're just the wind blowing in your line must be making it move just a little bit. And you see any of these good drop shot worms, I mean, the tail, they have these little bulbs and stuff. They have a lot of action even when you're holding them still. So I like to just hold the rod still. To that end, a lot of times, instead of going with a lighter weight, in the wintertime, I go up, when I'm deeper, I'll go to 1/2 ounce weight. I have a heavy one. They're not going to eat it on the drop. Usually when it's tough, it's when it's on the bottom. So I throw it out there, get it to the bottom quick. I keep it down on the bottom. That 1/2 ounce allows me to do it, and I just sit there and hold it. Shake it every once in a great while, and just let it sit there. And you want to put it in a key area. Same with the shallows. If it's a lay down or a dock, pitch it in there and just leave it in there. Shake it every once in a great while to give it the sense of life, but the longer you can leave it there, the better. The other thing is, a lot of times, the trick worm style, more the 7-inch, or like the regular finesse worm style, I don't know, it for whatever reason, in the winter, it seems like the longer one works better for me. So this is like a Magnum hit worm here. It's like a 7-inch worm. That longer seems to work better. Whereas in summer, a lot of times I can catch them on both. And a lot of times that finesse worm, that 4.5, 5-inch, works better. The big one, for whatever reason, in the wintertime just seems to work better. Longer and skinnier. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but the longer one works out well for me. And for more details on drop shotting, scoping, fishing shallow, check out my new podcast. Have a lot of top pros breaking down top techniques that are working right now.